everything you want. The anti-life equation.
One of the reasons that makes the DC Universe truly something special is the fact that one of its most terrifying antagonists just happens to be an equation, a mathematical certainty that does nothing other than confirming the futility of hope, free will, and life itself. A mathematical certainty capable of stripping sentient beings of free will, and in some later interpretations, threatening entire worlds and even reality itself. After all, there must be a reason why Darkseid wants it so badly. Anyone who hears it becomes a victim of it. This mathematical equation is called the anti-life equation, and no wonder Darkseid wants to spread it all over the world. In this video, we're going to talk about the anatomy of the anti-life equation and why it behaves the way it does. So without wasting any more time, let's jump right to it. What is the anti-life equation really? Let's start with the basics first. The anti-life equation is a fictional concept that shows up in various comics, movies, and shows of the DC Universe. It doesn't have a single interpretation, but in a nutshell, it's a mathematical concept that confirms the futility of free will. It's believed that this single equation has the capability to dominate the will of any sentient race. Apparently, it existed in the mind of billion-dollar Bates, who didn't reveal it to anyone until his death. Unsurprisingly, Darkseid continued to search for it, and he even managed to obtain it. And what's truly dangerous about this equation is that it doesn't take a lot of effort for Darkseid to insert the full equation into someone's mind and make that person believe in the futility of free will, hope, and life itself. He just has to say the equation. Across a variety of comics, shows, and movies in the DC Universe, the anti-life equation has presented itself in various forms. In the original comics, written by Jack Kirby, anyone who possesses the knowledge of the anti-life equation has the power to dominate the will of any sentient species. It's called the anti-life equation because if someone has complete control over you, then you are not really alive. This was the original intent behind the idea. Where the equation lives, the life equation counterpart. Darkseid got the opportunity to know about this equation about 300 years ago, when he first made contact with the Martians and got to know that their philosophy was based on the life equation, which emphasizes the importance of free will. After knowing that, Darkseid speculated that the opposite must also be true. And since then, he has been desperate to find it at any cost. Throughout the DC Universe, we see Darkseid as someone who is quite fanatically obsessed with the anti-life equation, which brings his attention to Earth on multiple occasions. He comes to Earth each time in search of bits and pieces of the equation, as it's been scattered throughout the totality of the human subconscious. At one point, his fanatical obsession with the anti-life equation compels him to reacquire the equation by cloning billion-dollar Bates. The body of a host. What happens when someone actually holds the equation? Throughout the entirety of the DC Universe so far, the equation has taken hold of various characters in various ways. It can be quite difficult to know in advance what it might end up doing later. For example, billion-dollar Bates, one of the several possessors of the equation, a wealthy businessman, had used it to subvert the will of his competitors and become extremely rich and powerful in the process. Eventually, the Forever People thwarted him. And subsequently, his own militia killed him during a ritual that was meant to transmit his will across the planet. Darkseid was quite disappointed with Bates. According to him, despite the fact that Bates was born with full knowledge of the anti-life equation, he was ill-equipped to truly know its value and exploit it accordingly. Instead of gaining cosmic power, the kind of power that would have enabled him to control the fate of every living being in the universe, he went for the material pursuit of wealth. And this didn't sit well with Darkseid. He was furious at Bates' short-sightedness. Mr. Miracle also demonstrates that anti-life is not necessarily irresistible. Scott Free knows the formula, but possesses the willpower not to use it. And in Grant Morrison's Seven Soldiers, Shiloh Norman, another hero to bear the Mr. Miracle identity, actually breaks free from the equation's control with Metron's help and develops an immunity to it. Now let's talk about another example. I think the anti-life equation taking hold of Mobius truly shows how powerful and cataclysmic it can be. After the multiverse was remade, Mobius took on a new form in this universe, and Perpetua was able to influence his new form through her prison, known as the Source Wall, and intensify his desire to take revenge against his brothers in the process. Mobius was reborn, and he sought the required knowledge to take revenge against his own brothers. He built the Mobius chair, a device that would help him learn the secrets of creation. He ended up murdering countless people as he became quite ruthless and fanatical in the pursuit of his goals. Eventually, when he stumbled upon the anti-life equation, he became a living embodiment of it, as he was cursed and transformed by it, becoming completely inseparable from that ominous equation. After Mobius got possessed by the sinister equation, he was universally considered the anti-god. He had enough power to destroy entire planets and consume all life across universes, which he did, by the way. He could control the minds of others and undermine their will. He could even use that equation to manipulate shadows cast by humanoid beings and give them life in order to use them as loyal servants who would aid him in battle. The equation pretty much fulfilled what it was always meant to do through Mobius. The Justifiers, mass transformation, and the red-eyed hive mind. Long story short, the Justifiers are basically the stormtroopers of Darkseid. They are humans who are powered by the sinister anti-life equation. On top of that, they are armed with weapons from Apocalypse. Darkseid survived by using humans as hosts for the equation after the fall of the new gods. The Justifiers were forced to submit to Darkseid. The equation was transferred to their minds directly through a helmet that used Mad Hatter's technology. The Justifiers have a symbiotic relationship with Darkseid. If Darkseid is hurt, they will also feel pain. And if he gets killed, they will also die. What's genuinely terrifying about the Justifiers is that they are just normal humans who are brainwashed by the anti-life equation. They appear as forces of Darkseid during the events of the Final Crisis. In the 4th issue of the comic series Final Crisis Volume 1, written by Grant Morrison, we see that Darkseid has broadcast the equation all over the world. And a month after that, his Justifiers destroy the Hall of Justice's force field, enter it, and then make Green Arrow a Justifier as well. We also see Dan Turpin, who is agonizingly trying to fight against Darkseid's influence while his body is altering. In the case of the Justifiers, the change is not just mental, by the way. We can clearly see in the comics that people change physically as well after turning into a Justifier. DCeased, the equation as a techno-organic zombie virus. DCeased is a comic book miniseries written by Tom Taylor. It was published by DC Comics in 2019. Its story is set in an alternate Earth called Earth 55, in which a corrupted form of the anti-life equation has infected most of the Earth's population with a zombie-like virus. The individuals infected by that virus are called the anti-living. In the comic miniseries, we see Cyborg tortured by Darkseid after he gets kidnapped, in the aftermath of the battle with the forces of Apocalypse. Darkseid reveals that one half of the equation exists within the body of Cyborg. Darkseid wants to merge that half with the one he has in his possession. In order to keep Cyborg alive during the process, Darkseid calls the Black Racer and restrains him. His essence is extracted and injected into Cyborg while the process of merging is going on. However, things take a really ugly turn here because the anti-life equation is corrupted and it becomes a techno-organic virus that can transform people into zombie-like monsters after infecting them. The virus ends up infecting Darkseid as well, who murders the Black Racer and annihilates Apocalypse. After Cyborg returns to Earth, the virus quickly spreads to the internet, infecting any digital device that comes into contact with it. And from there, it rapidly infects people all over the world. After getting infected by the virus, people attempt to claw the equation out of their minds. And then they turn into feral zombie-like creatures and infect other people through blood-to-blood transmission by biting and scratching them. Due to widespread usage of smartphones, computers, and televisions, the virus spreads quickly. After the virus came to Earth, 600 million people were infected immediately. And eventually, the numbers rose to billions within the next several days. Although the anti-living people are similar to zombies in many ways, they are not exactly zombies. According to Batman, they don't attack people because of an unending desire to consume the flesh of other people, unlike zombies. Instead, they just want to spread the anti-life equation as much as possible by infecting those who have not been infected yet. And unlike zombies, they don't die the moment they turn into anti-living beings after getting infected with the virus. And just like normal human beings, they can be killed by ordinary means. In case you're wondering whether some of your favorite superheroes from the DC universe were infected with the virus or not, yes, they were. Even Batman and Superman were not spared in this reality, as both of them were infected with the virus. Green Lantern and Joker were also infected. It is one of the bleakest stories revolving around the anti-life equation in the DC universe. Darkfather and the Batman Who Laughs, the equation as a stolen godhood. Batman has always been a hero struggling with his inner demons. And not surprisingly, he succumbs to the darkness in other universes, where he ends up becoming a villain instead of becoming a hero. Two such examples are Darkfather and the Batman Who Laughs. Darkfather is the Batman of his world, who, after defeating Darkseid, takes his powers and acquires an appearance like him. And not just that, he even attains mastery over the anti-life equation and alters the parademons of Apocalypse into para-Robins, equipping them with uniforms akin to the costume of his sidekick Robin. Later on, he retires after handing over the equation to the Superman of his world and joins the Batman Who Laughs, a Jokerized form of Batman from the Dark Multiverse, to invade Earth-Zero, under an agreement with Perpetua. The Teen Titans and Titans team up to fight against Darkfather and his army of para-Robins, but they get defeated by him. After that, Darkfather and his para-Robins face Superman, and they end up defeating him as well. Their battle brings about the destruction of the moon. Following the battle, Darkfather ends up keeping Superman as his prisoner, and he even tries to make him succumb to the anti-life equation, subjecting him to torture by exposing him to several types of kryptonite in order to weaken his resolve. Batman, Wonder Woman, and Harley Quinn come to the rescue. Batman uses his Black Lantern ring to stop Superman's dead cells from getting affected by the equation. In response, Darkfather shoots Batman with the gun Darkseid used on him before, to send him back in time in a previous battle. However, surprisingly, this time the blast from the gun does not work on Superman. Superman, now freed from captivity, punches Darkfather, sending him away from New Apocalypse into oblivion. The anti-life equation on screen, Zack Snyder's Justice League. The anti-life equation keeps getting frequently referenced in Snyderverse movies, directly or indirectly, especially in Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice and Zack Snyder's Justice League. You remember those atmospheric and apocalyptic dream sequences in which we see Superman as the villain, and we also see him blaming Batman for the death of his girlfriend, Lois Lane? In those sequences, Zack Snyder was probably hinting at the possibility of how the anti-life equation would have played out in the future installments if he had been able to continue expanding his Snyderverse. But I don't think that, at this point, we'll get to see a sequel to the Snyder Cut. It made significant changes and additions to the theatrical version of Justice League that was released before in 2017. And one of the major additions was the character of Darkseid and the portrayal of his obsession with the equation. In Zack Snyder's Justice League, the equation is not just implied in Batman's dream sequences, it is explicitly mentioned and shown in the movie. In the Snyder Cut, Steppenwolf is exiled to Earth by Darkseid because he failed to deliver enough worlds to him. He discovers a path of redemption for himself when he finds out that Earth has something that Darkseid has been searching for millennia, the anti-life equation, which is carved into the surface of the world.
I've got something you want. The only thing you want.
The anti-life equation in animation, the DCAU ending. Justice League Unlimited, released in 2004, was the final show of the DC animated universe. And its finale also includes a portrayal of the anti-life equation. However, despite that, the tone of the finale is significantly different. It's way less dark and ends on a happy note. In the final episode of the show, titled Destroyer, we see an epic high-stakes battle playing out between the Justice League and Darkseid. And when Luthor asks Metron to help him defeat Darkseid, he tells him that there is only one way to defeat Darkseid, but it's too risky. In response, Luthor states that he doesn't care. And then Metron takes Luthor to the source wall as the anti-life equation lies beyond it. Metron warns Luthor, telling him that only a 12th level intellect can survive the journey through the wall. In response, Luthor cockily states that he is overqualified. In the meantime, on Earth, we see Batman and Superman fighting against Darkseid. Initially, it seems like Darkseid is winning, but eventually Superman gets the upper hand and manages to overpower Darkseid for a while. But then he's trapped by Darkseid inside a torture field known as the Agony Matrix. The Agony Matrix activates every pain receptor in his body, making him feel helpless. Darkseid takes out a kryptonite blade, wanting to cut out Superman's heart with it. And during that moment, Luthor shows up with the only thing in the world Darkseid wants more than anything else, the anti-life equation. Nothing is more important to Darkseid than the equation. He wants it at any cost, as he believes that it would give him the power to conquer the entire universe. After Luthor presents the equation to Darkseid, it unleashes a massive amount of energy, destroying both of them in the process. Before they disappear, we see Darkseid marveling at the equation, calling it beautiful. Luthor agrees with him. After they disappear, the invading forces of Darkseid retreat from Earth. And this was how the anti-life equation was treated in the animated series Justice League Unlimited. Ambiguous, fan-disputed, and non-canon details. So just to clear the air here, the anti-life equation was first introduced in Jack Kirby's original comics as the equation that can give someone who learns it the power to dominate the will of all living beings in the universe. And most stories in the DC universe featuring or revolving around it use this particular concept to portray it. This concept makes a clear and sharp distinction between the equation and other methods of control, such as manipulation or hypnosis. However, the definition of the anti-life equation has changed over time as various writers have offered their own interpretations of it. In the comic miniseries Cosmic Odyssey by Jim Starlin, the equation is portrayed as a living shadow-based deity, and whatever it touches gets corrupted and destroyed. And in this miniseries, shockingly enough, Darkseid teams up with the New Gods and a group of superheroes to stop it. And when Jim Starlin returned to write another comic miniseries for DC Comics, Death of the New Gods, he gave another interpretation of the equation, portraying it as half of a cosmic being that was split into two by the War of the Old Gods. But let me reiterate, these interpretations are not based on the portrayal of the equation in Jack Kirby's original comics. The Multiversity has a completely different take on the equation, as it portrays a version of it known as the anti-death equation. It's used by the Gentry, and it can turn its victim into evil and gruesome creatures who are incapable of dying. However, this should not be conflated with the other interpretation and definition of the equation either. Also, DCeased is set in an alternate timeline, and it's not part of the main continuity in the DC universe, so it's not canon. And as mentioned before, that miniseries features an extremely strange, horrifying, and bizarre take on the equation, which is significantly different from its portrayal in Jack Kirby's original comics as well. The DC universe has a reputation for being extremely dark, and the existence of the anti-life equation throughout the DC universe certainly contributes significantly to that reputation. It adds a layer of chaos, something that's uncontrollable once unleashed, and bigger than the larger-than-life superheroes and supervillains. It's capable of destroying them all without any discrimination. And as we've discussed in this video, it can be portrayed in endless ways. Alright folks, this is where we'd like to sign off. We hope you enjoyed our video. Please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Take care and stay tuned. We'll be back soon with our next video before you know it.